Tree Talking Time is brought to you by Conkey's Outdoors and Stone Creek Hound Supply. Be sure to check them out for all your hound hunting needs. Welcome to Tree Talking Time, where we talk all things tree dogs, from the smallest feists to the largest hounds, treating squirrels to bears and everything in between. And from time to time, we might even run a little fast game.
Been down in Mexico hunting for a few days, and I trailed a lion. I don't know, like 6 or 7 miles down, right on the Rio Grande River, but on the Mexico side. And I've been sitting here running in my mind where he went.
I understand.
But, yeah, I grew up hog hunting, and my dad was a hog hunter when he was younger, and then he'd kind of gotten out of it. And then when I was a kid, he got back into it.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't have any collars.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they had shock collars there, but we didn't have any of them. And then I remember when he bought his first set of shock collars. And then when I started cat hunting with Reuben, there wasn't no GPS collars. There was beat collars.
Mm-hmm.
And so I bought all the beat. And then the following year, the Garmin GPS collars came out.
Yeah.
And, and of course I had to have some of them. So I had to buy 2 sets of collars in a year, and It seems like it hadn't stopped since.
Oh, no.
Always a better one.
Exactly. No, I've made some jumps, some big jumps from systems. I kind of skipped a couple of the in-between years. I went from the, to 220 or 320 in the DC 30s to an Alpha 100 and TT 15s. And then I skipped all the 200s and went to a 300i with TT 25s.
Yeah, I like these new TT 25 collars.
Yeah, granted, I haven't put mine through any sort of amount of work like you have, but they work every time I turn them on, so that's all I'm worried about.
Yeah, I ordered them with the extended batteries already installed in them and all that stuff, and man, it's nice. I could go hunting 5 days without charging my collars.
Wow.
And yeah, now when I'm not hunting, I switch them to 2 minutes, and I don't like the dynamic mode.
Okay.
I know a lot of people do, but I don't. So if I'm hunting, it's on 2.5 seconds. And then if I'm not hunting, it's on 2 minutes.
Gotcha.
But it'll last, I can hunt 5 mornings with it pretty easy.
Nice.
And that comes in handy, especially for a lot of places I hunt, there's no power.
Mm-hmm.
And I can charge them from my truck, but
it's a hassle.
A pain.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really nice to just be able to go hunting. And I don't go off and hunt much. I mean, generally I go hunt 2 days to 3 days, maybe 4 days, but never any longer than that. So, I don't go on any long trips or anything. So,
gotcha.
They always get by with a charge.
That's pretty good though. So,
but when I first started hunting, if you'd have told me the collars were $400 a piece, I'd have told you I ain't got a $400 dog to put them on. I ain't buying them. But
there's been a couple times if they didn't have that collar on there, I would have.
Yeah, I wouldn't have looked for them so hard.
Exactly.
Yeah. No,
it's made me a better houndsman just because I'm like, that dog probably would have slept in the woods tonight, but I'm not going to risk that collar not coming home.
So when I first got GPS collars, I was cat hunting already, but I was still hog hunting with my dad a lot. And we had a dog named Houdini, and my dad loves to tell this story, but I cannot tell you how many hours me and my father had spent waiting on Houdini. And we'd go around and, dang, that sucker just hunts so hard. He's just too wide ranging. And finally one day my dad was like, man, Houdini sure hunts real hard and real wide. man, it sure never starts anything, you know? And I got them GPS collars, and we were going to go hog hunting one night. I said, here, just put these GPS collars on your dog. And that's when we learned that freaking Houdini dog, we would go hunting, and we'd catch a pig or two, and when he'd get tired, he'd go out there about 100 yards and just lay down.
That's what I was thinking.
And we'd call and call and call and wait. He'd just lay down. And with them GPS collars, we learned real quick, you know. And, you know, and then we put a shot collar on him and made him come back.
Yeah.
And, but, you know, all those hours spent waiting and calling on the dog, and he was right there the whole time. Lazy fool.
So what made you go from hog hunting to cat hunting?
So, like I said, I grew up, I was probably in 4th grade or so when my dad started back to hog hunting with me. You know, he just did it because I wanted to do it. And hog hunting is, and I'll you know, I'll catch a world of flack for saying this, but hog hunting is pretty easy compared to bobcat hunting. Okay. And I will label that with hog hunting the way we hog hunted was very easy. Okay. You know, we just mainly hunted grain fields, you know, farmland. Mm-hmm. And I mean, me and my dad would go hunting. We'd pull up to the field. We'd turn the dogs loose. We'd drive 300 yards. The dogs would strike a hog. We would go shoot it. We would load the dogs up and go home. And we caught thousands of hogs. Mm-hmm. But they were easy, you know, and they had never been hunted before. And it wasn't in brush. And it wasn't in mountains or, you know, or anything. And yeah, but it was pretty easy. And I knew an old man named Norman Davidson that was a bobcat hunter. And so I knew a little bit about it. I'd hunted with him a time or two. Just the hounds was something that and we did it with blackmouth curs. Okay. You know, I mean, we didn't have trailing dogs or nothing. And, you know, the people that I would talk to would say, oh man, hunting bobcats with hounds, that's sure tough down here. And it is, especially when it's dry. And, but what set it off, is I really wanted to kill a mountain lion. Okay. When I was about 20. And Reuben Lossman, and I forget how I met Reuben, but he called me one day and said, hey, you really want to kill a mountain lion? And I said, yeah, I sure do. He said, well, come up and see me. So I drove all the way to his house. And he never had one before, and he never had one since. But somehow, Reuben had come in contact with a lion, a big old male lion, alive in a hog trap. And he said, if you want to kill this lion, we'll turn it loose, and we'll run it with the dogs, and you can shoot it. And I looked at him, and I said, Reuben, man, I don't mean no disrespect, but I don't really want to shoot a lion that way, you know? Yeah. And he kind of looked at me and grinned, and he said, well, that's good to hear you say that. Let's go bobcat hunting. And we left the lion in the trap there, and we went bobcat hunting, and that's how I started bobcat hunting that day. And we caught a cat, and when I left, Reuben give me a dog, a 3-month-old pup, and that's how I got started. And I always kind of joked with Reuben. I said, "What would you have done if I told you I wanted to shoot that lion?" And he said, "I'd have kicked it out for you, and you'd have shot it. I'd probably never seen you again." Yeah. And I forget how he got it. I don't remember. Somebody caught it in a live trap, yeah. And but you know, just the fact that I didn't want to shoot a lion that way kind of made him respect me a little bit more and decide he'd spend a little time with me. And but it took a long time. South Texas is a funny place. You can come to my house on one day, and I would argue that South Texas has the best trailing conditions in the country. And you can come back to that same place 6 months later, and I would argue that it's the toughest trailing conditions in the country. And South Texas is it's very special in what it does when it rains. I mean, how it can go from just bare ground, nothing but dirt and dust, to grass 3 foot tall because it rains 3 inches. You
Wow.
know, it's really, really cool place.
Yeah.
Kind of on the edge of the Chihuahuan Desert, but it's close to the coast, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
we may be in just wonderful conditions for several years, and then we may be in, you know, pretty droughty conditions for several years.
That's rough.
And when it's bad here, it's bad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, several times in the last 5 years, it has gotten so bad here that you can't catch a cat. I mean, you have your dogs multiple times have the dogs roding on the ground and see a bobcat cross the road 100 yards in front of them and never get a bark.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, when it rains, it's the best. You know, I get a lot of people reach out to me on Facebook and stuff, and they see that I catch quite a few cats, and
Mm-hmm.
and you know, everybody wants to know the secret, and man, what do you do, and how do you catch so many cats, and that's unbelievable, and there's no secret, man. I just live in a place where there's tons of cats.
And you hunt hard. I mean,
yeah, and I hunt hard, and that makes a big difference. But if they're not there, you're not going to catch them. I don't care who you are.
oh yeah.
And when I first started hunting with Ruben, there was a place that hired us to hunt, and they kept track of what we caught. And the ranch was 7,500 acres, and the first year we hunted it, me and Ruben caught 78 bobcats off of it.
Wow.
And
That's
that's a lot of bobcats. And you know, the brush is real thick, but it's funny, you know, that particular ranch, the cats just don't, you know, in that area, they don't run very well. I mean, you trail a bobcat up and get him jumped, he might run 10 minutes.
okay.
And average 10 minutes, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go 30 miles west of there, and every cat you run may run 45 minutes to an hour. Like I say, South Texas it's a weird place.
Yeah. Have you ever run
And,
bobcats anywhere else?
so no, not really.
Gotcha.
I did go to Oklahoma, and Brett filmed that hunt.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, a friend of mine, Derek, was up there, and he was kind of having some trouble catching cats, and I was trying to help him figure out what to do, and so I loaded up and went up there, and Brett met us over there, and we filmed the hunt, and we caught we caught 2 bobcats, and
Mm-hmm.
one morning and one night, and I think one of them ran 40 minutes and one of them ran 12 minutes.
Okay.
So, but no, I've never run them like in Oregon. I know there's
Mm-hmm.
some guys in Florida that run them, Michael Rook and Harold Parker and those guys. I think Harold Parker's in Florida now too, but I've never been in any of that country.
Gotcha.
So I don't know. You know, as long as you don't go anywhere else, you can always say that where you hunt is the hardest to catch.
Very true.
Nah, this is the toughest bobcat. You know, everybody you talk to, they say, "Oh man, you catch all them cats here, but you couldn't catch them over here like that." You know, and but each place presents its own challenges.
Oh, for sure.
And when you hunt a location and you're presented with those challenges, you build a pack that's specialized to those challenges.
Yep.
And so, I mean, like if I were to go to Oregon bobcat hunting tomorrow, I don't know that my dog would ever locate a bobcat in those big trees.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure I could tree every one of them. I have no doubt, but I don't think my dogs could locate up there.
Yeah, they're used to that small scrub brush where they can see it, and
yeah, I tree a few in some, you know, what I consider to be big trees, but they're not big trees. you know, I mean, I tree some that they can't see, but they've got that's a different world up there.
Yeah, when I was in East Texas last winter, everything I got told, like, there's no big trees here. You know, big trees there are little trees, you know, in the Midwest, in the East Coast.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, all right, I see what you mean. Like, because he's like, you should be able to see every coon. Like, there's no question. Like, usually it's either there or it's not. Like, there's not a lot of den trees. I mean, there are some, but he's like, there's not a lot. And it's usually there or not. I said, okay. And for the most part, that's kind of what it was like.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, I want to go to East Texas. I got a friend of mine that I met on Facebook, Alan Smith, that lives over there, and he's kind of a coon hunter, and he's always trying to get me to come up there and go run bobcats with him, but I haven't done it yet. But
well, I know you. Well, I would imagine you get full pricing. You were on the cover, but yourself, the picture from the August-September issue, the Walker dog.
Yes, sir.
That's in East Texas.
Really?
Yeah, I took that photo last year when I was down there.
Huh? I'll have to look at it.
Yep.
Yeah, I get the full cry. I was on Facebook one day and someone made a comment about me, and then Jason Doobie made a comment, said, interesting, Cody King's on the cover of Full Cry this month. And then, you know, it was Scott's story.
Yeah.
So I had no idea. I didn't even know what he's talking about. So I had to subscribe to it then.
Yeah.
And but yeah, no, coon hunting's not a thing down here. I've never intentionally treed a coon. I've treed a few that shouldn't have been treed, and I've treed a few a lot more recently than I would like to admit. But
that's trash down there, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And but I've never once in my life seen a coon dog.
Okay.
It's just not a thing where I live.
Yeah.
And I don't know how far you would have to go to get to where there are coon hunters, but I've like I said, I've never seen a dog that someone owned that said, yeah, this is what I treat coons with. It's just not a thing. And we have tons of coons. I don't know why, but
now there's a big PKC event down there. It's the Lone Star. I forget. It's in January, I think.
Yeah, I was actually talking to Alan last night about that.
Yeah.
And just because I told him, I said, make sure and let me know when it is because I want to go.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to go to one of those hunts because I've never been to one. And so the only exposure I've really had to competition coon huntings is the crazy guy with the one-on-one coon page, Storm and Norman. Yeah.
Yes.
It I see him on Facebook in the competition coon hunts that he tries to put on. But
that is a horrible. If that's all you know about competition coon hunting, that's a horrible representation.
Yeah, no,
find something else to watch.
It's good for the layman that doesn't know coon hunting though, because you got electric meters getting stolen, and I'm gonna whoop your butt kind of stuff going on. It's kind of like a soap opera. Anytime you watch it,
exactly.
And
it's a whole bunch of drama.
Yeah, and it's always it's always comical because you watch his hunt, and the other dog will strike a coon and be winning, and then all of a sudden there's some screaming and fighting, and I won, and loads his dogs up and leaves.
Yeah.
It's about me when I was about 8 years old. If I was running a coon hunt, how I would act and behave.
Exactly.
So,
now there's a lot of guys that don't like hunting with him. That's for sure.
Yeah, and the all the guys accusing him of stealing the electric meter at one of those hunts was pretty comical to read up on one.
Yep. So.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm sure at some point in time, Scott will probably write an article for Full Cry about our leopard hunt this year.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to that. That's for sure.
Yeah, because that picture that I was on the cover of, that was from the year before.
Yeah.
And
which, speaking of that, that's kind of why I wanted to have you on. You've hunted a lot of cats. You're a South Texas bobcat hunter. Then you decided to start chasing mountain lions, but most recent adventure was that leopard hunt.
Yeah, that was something else, man. So I went over there last year with Gavin from Panther Trackers. Yep. And
what's Gavin's last name?
Gavin Lipjes or Lipjes or I don't know his last name. Lipjes. I tell you, so I went overseas and I hunted with Gavin and Scott, and you can't understand them guys when they talk, man. I mean, they eat their biscuits are cookies, and their cookies are crisps, and it's very complicated to hang out with those guys for 2 weeks. Everything's backwards, but yeah, no, Gavin Lipjes with Panther Trackers, and he actually did a podcast somewhere.
I think it was with Chris Powell.
Yeah, and someone told me about that podcast, and that's how I found Gavin.
Okay.
And I went with him last year, and last year I was really sick, and I was on some extreme high doses of medication that made me extremely sensitive to the sun, and it was kind of a miserable trip. But we did catch a leopard, but it just wasn't one that we could harvest.
Yeah.
And then so we decided to go back again this year, and we went to a different place over on the coast of Mozambique.
Okay.
And it was a ball, man. It was just going to Africa hunting is a really cool experience, and I recommend everyone do it at some point in their life. And even I'm going to go back with Gavin this May, and on a very cheap trip. But we're going to go over there and we're going to run Caracal and Serval and Jackal with hounds. Oh. Not his hounds. We're going to go with some predation packs.
Okay.
And, it's, obviously much, much cheaper than a leopard hunt.
Yeah.
And, but man, just the experience to go over there and hunt with dogs over there it's phenomenal. And I recommend everybody that can try to get over there at some point in time.
Oh yeah. No, I know that's my my bucket list hunt is to get over there.
Yeah. No, it was cool. And for me, I run, South Texas running walkers, and it was pretty cool to go over there hunting, and then the best 3 dogs Gavin have are running walkers. So I got to feel a little at home there.
Yeah.
And
besides running walkers, what else does he have?
Some stuff that I can't pronounce or remember the name.
Okay.
But he had some dogs that are kind of like blue ticks, but they're not blue ticks.
Gascons?
Maybe Gascons. Yeah, I think that's it actually.
Okay.
And then he had an Argentina Dogo.
Mm-hmm.
And then he had a big hairy greyhound.
Okay.
That has an English name, Lurcher.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a big Lurcher.
Mm-hmm.
And those leopards are real bad a lot of times. The first year that we went, the leopard we encountered was real bad about it as well. But they're real bad a lot of times about, kind of like you hear of an old walking bear. You hear bear hunters tell stories. Doesn't really run, doesn't tree, doesn't pay much attention to the dogs, and just kind of keeps walking.
Yeah.
And like that Dogo and that Lurcher, greyhound type dog, they're there to just put some pressure on them and make them go up.
I gotcha.
And but yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was pretty neat the way we hunted. The first year that we went, we had baits out.
Okay.
And every morning we would go check the bait. And, you'd pull up to the bait and the goat or the cow leg would be eaten. And Gavin would turn the dogs loose. And you have a leopard that was just there. And he's full. And he's laid up within a couple 100 yards, and it's actually pretty easy.
Yeah.
And you tree the leopard or you don't. But this year, when we went, we were hunting in an area that leopards will not eat bait like they do everywhere else.
Okay.
And
gotten smart.
They all attest it to. They're in areas where the leopards have been poisoned very heavily for generations and generations.
Yeah.
And the leopards have learned not to eat dead stuff because it may have poison on it. And that may be true. Maybe a whole bunch of leopards ate enough poison to get sick but not die or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. So we started every day this year. We'd get up about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and they had a team of 10 natives that we would drop off at 5 different locations in 2-man teams. And each team was responsible for walking, a mile or 2 of river bottom.
Okay.
And since it's their dry season, the river has no water in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like a landing strip 100 yards wide of beach sand.
Yeah.
A mouse could not walk across it without leaving a track. So every morning they'd go to look for tracks, and it's pretty cool. Then Gavin would have all of the natives take a stick and measure the track with it and break it off. So, every morning when we're at the meeting place, all these guys show up and they're carrying their sticks, and Gavin takes all the sticks from them and finds the biggest stick and says, "Okay, where'd you find it at?"
Yeah.
And we'd go try to find that leopard. And, a little bit harder of a situation because the leopard's not full.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know, the bait didn't keep him in one place all night.
Yeah.
So it was tougher hunting, but we got it done.
He could have crossed, at 6 o'clock last night.
Yeah.
Like you said, first thing this morning, yeah.
Yeah. And so yeah, we tracked a male leopard for the first 4 days we were there, and trailed him a couple times, got pretty close to him a couple times, but never could make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then he disappeared for 3 or 4 days.
So you were on
And
Brett's live, I don't know when that was, and then it became a podcast for W. And I know you talked about you guys had to quit hunting pretty early, right?
yeah, so they have a bug over there called a tsetse fly. And anybody that follows me on Facebook knows about the war that I've had with chagas bugs here in South Texas. And come to find out after the fact, uh, the the bug that's in the chagas bug here in Texas is a trypanosome cruzi, and the bug that's in the tsetse fly in Africa is a trypanosome bromine. So they're distant cousins, and they're dog killing fools.
Okay.
That they, if those trypanosomes get inside a dog's bloodstream, he could die.
Yeah.
And over here, they're in a big beetle, blood sucking beetle, but over there, they're in a little fly, kind of like a horse fly.
Mm.
And they, in the mornings, it's cool and they're not moving around. But once that sun comes up, them tsetse flies get pretty bad.
Mm.
So after about 9 o'clock in the morning, you're done. All of the natives would be carrying a dog on a leash, and they would all have a limb with a bunch of leaves on it that they would be, for lack of a better word, beating those dogs with those leaves, just to keep the tsetse flies off of them.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's a major problem. They kill cattle too.
Oh, wow.
I mean, the big giant area we were in, no cows. Which has a huge impact on the natives' lives and their ability to feed themselves.
For sure.
So that was pretty, pretty disheartening to see.
Mm.
And, not all tsetse flies carry that trypanosome. So where we were the year before, there wasn't really many tsetse flies, and the ones that were there don't really carry that disease.
Gotcha.
And, but yeah, no, it's pretty bad stuff. I had to build a big giant set of kennels here at my house. I lost, 4 or 5 dogs in the last year, probably.
That's awful.
To Chagas disease. Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah, I built some big kennels that are basically bug proof. All screened in and always something.
For sure.
Always something.
But that really limits what you can do if you're not able to hunt all day. It's not like you can pursue a leopard, like you're saying, like track it and actually run a track if you're afraid of these bugs killing your dogs.
No, and that's exactly right. And, there's so many other variables over there. I mean, so number one, Gavin don't live in Africa. He lives in Australia.
Yeah.
So, he's got his season where he does these hunts, and then, he leaves his dogs for the rest of the year, and he gets someone to hunt them for him for the remainder of the year. But like I was looking at the situation like, we don't need to look for tracks. Just turn these dogs loose and let's just start going down this river.
Yeah.
What I would do with my dogs at home, and and you just can't really do that with the situation there. You don't have hours and hours and hours of daylight that you could just hunt and look and find a cat.
Yeah.
You've got a very small window in the morning to work with, and so you have to do whatever you have to do to increase your chances of finding that track, and that's covering the country with all them guys, And
now,
but it was pretty cool.
Where you were at, were there any lines around where you were at?
So, short answer is no.
Okay.
10 years ago or more, there was. I think they had been killed out. Gotcha. Because they were causing too many problems.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you could have seen a lion at any minute. The Goza National Park, which is full of lions, was bordering where we were hunting.
I gotcha.
So it is a possibility. And it's real funny, you know, like Gavin and Philip Botha and the guys that Gavin helping him in America were kind of spoiled to the extent that, you know, we just take off marching through the brush. You know, we're not scared of nothing.
Yeah.
And I mean, even if you come up on a big old nasty bear or whatever, I mean, 99.9% chance he's just going to leave.
I mean, and unless you're in grizzly country, I mean,
yeah.
As far as black bear, there's not much here in the United States that to be real scared of.
Yeah, and that's not, you know, it's pretty neat to hunt with guys that aren't comfortable like that all the time, you know. And you know, in the area that we were in, there wasn't no lions that you really had to worry about, but it was a possibility. But everywhere else they hunt, you know, there's lions and elephants, and Philip, both his uncles, got killed by some elephants hunting one morning.
Wow.
And gnarly story, man. I think he killed 3 of the elephants.
Jeez.
And the client that was hunting with him actually made a miraculous shot and killed the last elephant. And it fell on top of Philip's uncle and killed him.
Oh.
Yeah. You know, so you're hunting with these guys, and it's kind of eerie, you know. And Gavin, if anybody who's met Gavin, I'm 6'3". He's just as tall as me and probably has me by 150 pounds, and it's all muscle.
Big guy.
And and probably the most in shape individual I've ever seen in my life. Him and Philip. I mean, they can go. And just seeing these, you know, this big old giant stout guy walking around with a little bit of fear in him, you know, it you know, it's like, man, if you know, the previous year we had run a leopard into some big old boulders, and we never got it caught, but we could hear it roar and fighting with the dogs. You know, I kind of got pretty comfortable looking in them boulder holes and stuff for a cat. Finally, Gavin came over and said, "Hey, man, you're getting a little too comfortable with that gun hanging down by your feet. You know, you pick it up." I mean, they're walking around with their gun at their shoulder, you know, ready to go.
Yeah.
And knowing that can happen at any time you're walking around out there is, you know, that adds a level to hound hunting that we don't have. And it's pretty interesting to see that. And you know, you're over there hunting and the dogs go by the water to get a drink, and Gavin's calling them out, worried about crocodiles eating them. I mean, it's you know, it's kind of nonstop danger over there.
It's very different, that's for sure.
Yeah, very spooky. Elephants and the Cape Buffalo, they're not really you know, I killed the Cape Buffalo while I was there this year, and he charged, and it was you know, it was pretty eerie, and it's just like, God dang, man.
Everything wants to kill you.
Everything over here fights back, man. and I think that's the novelty of it, you know, the nostalgia, whatever you want to call it. But I think that's the desire that draws a lot of people to Africa. You know, you can't, I mean, around the corner at any point in time, there could be something that could literally kill you quick.
Yep.
And I'm not used to that. So
yeah, you're a mountain lion. You know, bobcat and mountain lion hunter. You know, bobcats and mountain lions run from you. You don't, when you're like you said, you're poking your head looking for a cat in a hole.
Yeah.
Even if a lion was in that hole, it might swat at you when it's coming out, but it's going to keep on going.
Yeah, I'm not scared of a lion. You know, um, I'd climb a tree with a lion. They're if you don't know any better, they're scared of them. But lions are sissies compared to the rest of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing that we have over here on this side of the ocean that compares to it at all is a jaguar.
Yeah.
And they're pretty. You know, they're the same way. I mean, they're just a leopard, but bigger.
Conkeys Outdoors is proud to be a sponsor of Tree Talking Time. Family, hunting, tradition is the Conkeys motto. They understand the importance of passing down the tradition of hound hunting. They are a family-owned business that treats you like family. They also understand the importance of having the gear you need when you need it. Conkeys carries everything for your next hunt, and it ships to your door quick. They also offer great warranties on all tracking systems and financing options. Check them out at conkeys.com. You can also use the code TreeTalkingTime5 in all caps to save as well. They're bigger?
Yes, jaguars get bigger than leopards. Yeah.
Well, you've hunted them too, haven't you?
I have quite a couple of them.
Maybe hunting in a little bit of a different sense. You're collaring them, right?
Correct. Yeah.
But still, from a houndsman perspective, it's the whole same process. Yeah,
it's the same process. And, it's with the exception of they are dangerous, and you don't have a gun.
Yeah.
It's very easy to walk around not being afraid of anything when you got a lever action in your hand. But I'll never forget. We bait an old jaguar up, a big old tom, probably 175 pounds, and I had a machete in my hand to just kind of help clear the brush. The biologist and crew had went one way, which ended up being the right way, and I went the other way, which ended up being the wrong way. And them jaguars and the leopards, for that matter, they're very vocal.
Okay.
When they're baying the dogs and stuff, I mean they're making noise. They're growling, and it's a pretty eerie sound. And in all of my years of being in the woods, the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life, there was a big old tree growing out of the side of the mountain that had fallen down, and we had started this old jaguar, and we had been hunting them for a few days, and those biologists, they didn't want to have to walk 12 miles through the mountains in thick brush, trailing a cold jaguar track. So they had gotten some baits and put them out,
mm-hmm.
and they had some calls that they would try to call the jaguars in with them. And after, a week of not finding anything, kind of the same thing I did in Africa, I was like, screw that, man. Turn these dogs loose and let's just start driving.
Let's go hunting.
And I finally convinced them of that. And true Cody King luck fashion, we dumped them dogs. We didn't go 400 yards, man. And we that big old jungle, we didn't go 400 yards, and them dogs went to trailing. And of course, I got cat dogs. And down there's all kinds of different cats.
Mm-hmm.
There's bobcats, there's ocelots, there's jaguarundis, there's margay, there's mountain lions, and there's jaguars. I don't know what the dogs are trailing. I just know it's a cat. It's one of the 6 cat species you could possibly have here.
Yep.
And but pretty soon we found a track, and so we knew. But anyways, they went one way and I went the other, and I ended up not being able to get up to where the dogs had that jaguar bait. And I had 12 dogs on the cat. And that cat jumped down, and there was this big old tree it was still alive, but it was kind of laying down. And I was in a spot where I couldn't get to the dogs, but I was 30 yards from them.
Okay.
And out of this crevice, I just see this big, giant jaguar backing up, and then all of my dogs baying and coming forward. And that jaguar backed over his hind legs over that tree trunk, and then he stopped with his front two legs resting on top of that tree trunk. And it was probably a 8 or 10 inch diameter tree.
Okay.
Not a real big tree, but 8 inches in diameter. And them dogs were all barking, and that jaguar immediately went to jumping up and down, bouncing on that tree, shaking every tree, every limb, every leaf on that tree, and just a display of force.
Yeah.
And growling at them dogs. He just backed up and and he's bouncing up and down, shaking this whole tree. The coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. And I reached in my back pocket to grab my phone, and I remembered I put my phone on the charger in the truck. I didn't have it with me. It would have been the coolest video that you could possibly imagine ever having.
Yeah.
And, you know, those guys were real big on no pictures and stuff like that. But I would have filmed that and just not told them.
Yeah.
But their strength, man, them jaguars are just a whole. That's a different world. That's like an African deal, man. That's just a different world. He didn't want to run. He didn't want to tree. He just wanted to fight.
So what's a big jaguar?
300 pounds.
Jeez.
Yeah, and you're going to find those really big ones in South America.
Okay.
You know, Mexico jaguar is not going to get that big.
I understand.
But yeah, they. So you have tigers, and then you have lions, and then you have jaguars, and then you have leopards, and that's the order of size.
Gotcha.
And I'd like to bay a lion with dogs one day.
That would be epic.
That would be pretty cool. Yeah. I think it's real hard to get a permit to do that anymore. But
old school Rhodesian Ridgebacks.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Just like I always heard the stories, we might as well get some and go give it a try.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, heck, you live in Texas. You could probably just do that in Texas.
Yeah.
You got I think the highest population of lions and tigers outside of anywhere else.
Yeah, that's very true. Be careful, I'll be on an episode of Tiger King instead of the Tree Talking Time podcast next week, man.
Yeah.
And that's why I've been talking so much about trying to tree a lynx with my hound.
Yeah.
If I can tree a lynx, you know, I would be able to say that I've treed every North American cat there is. So that would be pretty cool.
You said there's 6 species in Mexico of cat?
Yeah.
And you've treated everything?
6. Yeah. Yeah. I've treated a few ocelots, and I've caught some jaguarundis, and margays and ocelots. Margay, there's a little population of them kind of closer to me in that jaguar country, you know.
Gotcha.
They're a little old tree dwelling cat, and the jaguarundis are a real small cat. Supposedly, according to the state of Texas, there's never been a confirmed sighting of a jaguarundi in the state of Texas since 1986. And
but you've treated one.
You know, the state says it, so it's got to be true. But the ones I caught were not in Mexico, so I don't know how to handle that really. But
that's when you roll one out and you take it to them and be like, this was not in Mexico.
Yeah, That's exactly right. Maybe they'd forgive me.
I'm just trying to
for
prove
killing the endangered species. I was just proving your point, man. We're so blessed now. When we were growing up, and I don't know how old you are. I'm 40.
I'm 34.
When I was growing up, then you may not be the same. You're pretty close. I was kind of the last of the Mohicans technology-wise, but when I was growing up, doing all this stuff, everybody didn't have a camera in their pocket.
Yeah.
And, the cameras we had were yellow and black, and you had to crank that little black dial, to get to the next film to take a picture, disposable cameras. And nowadays, hell, we got the best cameras in the world on our phones at all the time. And
I would beg to differ. Best, that word best, but
yeah, they may not be the best.
They're very good.
But we do have cameras, and so a lot of the stuff that I've done over the years, there's just no pictures of, and that I wish there was, but there's not. And but no, I've tried to tell some of them guys, that hey, for example, ocelots in the state of Texas, they say there's really only any left, really right on the coast, very close to the Mexico border. I tried telling the guys for a long time. I was like, man, there's some ocelots right over here by my house, And finally, one got run over a year or so ago over there. And, so then now it's all the big news. Oh, we found a new genetic disbursement of ocelots. Oh, this is so cool. Like,
you've known it for years.
Yeah. And when I started cat hunting 20 years ago, there was probably 4 or 5 cat hunters within an hour drive of where I stand right now. Mm-hmm. And today, you would have to drive 3 hours to get to the next cat hunter.
Man.
So, these guys that are studying wild cats, before they printed their thesis out for submission, you think they would go have a conversation with the one guy left that does nothing but hunt cats for a hobby.
Nah.
But they don't. We don't know nothing,
Nope. You're not an authority or anything. It's not that you spend, pushing 200 days a year at least in the woods,
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's so frustrating. So frustrating. And then you try to say something, and it's like they lump you in with everybody claiming to see Black Panthers everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, I know what I'm talking about, but they won't listen to you. So they'll figure it out on their own, one way or the other.
Yep.
But so yeah, that's my next mission is to find a place to go catch a lynx.
So you want to catch lynx, and then you're going to Africa to catch some caracals and what else?
Caracals and servals and jackals, which is like a fox, coyote hybrid kind of deal. But
yeah, they're about in between.
I'd like to go over there and see that. Those guys all use running walkers, and that's where Gavin got his running walkers from.
Okay.
And so those guys over there, they actually do predator control for a living, and it's kind of a subscription-based predator control. The one guy that we're going to go stay with, he has 8 different packs of dogs that hunt. I mean, like 300 days a year.
Jeez.
And so and then all of the ranchers in that area, they each pay couple $100 a month or whatever, and he's just always rotating packs down. Pretty cool the way they do things in Africa. Labor is so cheap. All of those guys working over there are getting paid the equivalent of $3 a day.
Wow.
Yeah. It's $90 a month. And with labor being so cheap, a guy can have 8 different packs of dogs running around all over the place,
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just different. It's amazing how poor it is over there.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, live off the land kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, mud huts and but everybody seems happy. I think a lot of those people, if the white man would quit going over there and telling them how poor they are, you know, they'd be okay. They're kind of living their way
Yeah.
and living off the land and
basically the same as anybody's subsistence living. You've got years of surplus, you've got years of deficit, you get drought and stuff. So I'm sure there's years that are harder than others, but then you've got years that are good.
yeah.
That's basically anybody that lives off the land, you're going to have that.
Yeah, I'd really like to go over there and hunt, with my own dogs.
Mm-hmm.
But it would just be so expensive, importing them and exporting them and transferring them over there. There's a cat hunter. He just retired from hunting, but his name's Alan Listall from Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
And he always says, he goes, man, I'm telling you, he says, we can go and we can register some of our dogs as emotional support animals and take them on the plane with us. And it, always kind of joking, but, you go over there and go hunting with them at the same time. It's just not the same when you don't have a dog there.
Yeah. No, I completely understand.
Yeah, it's just not the same.
Well, that's why you just need to get Gavin to buy a couple of yours, and you'll just take them over and
take them over. Yeah,
he needs some good American run walker blood.
Yeah, they would do pretty good over there. Especially the way he hunts. The way he hunts, you really don't need that super cold nosed dog.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you're hunting them off bait, and even in them river bottoms, we would find a track, and we would maybe track that leopard for a mile by sight before we would turn the dog. We would find where he left the river finally.
Yeah.
And so, just because of the way he hunts, you really don't need that real cold nose, New Mexico dry ground mountain lion type dog.
Yep.
And so running dogs would probably be good. It may be hard finding enough of them that are aggressive enough for it, but they're around. But he knows how to do it. We trailed that cat for several days, and then it disappeared for a few days, and then we caught it. And while we were taking pictures with it, I looked down at his paws, and I told Gavin, I said, this ain't the same tomcat. And Gavin kind of, oh yeah, it'll be months for another Tom comes in here. This is his range. So Gavin, I think there's two Toms. I said, look, and that leopard was missing two toes on one of his foot.
Oh, geez.
And so, I mean, it was pretty obvious once we did some investigating that this is not the leopard that we've been hunting.
Yeah.
And he actually went back there later this year with another hunter and caught the cat that we were originally trailing.
Okay.
And which was a bigger cat.
Of course it was.
So, yeah, always.
Now, how big was your cat?
Man, I would say it weighed 140 pounds.
Okay.
Yeah. So different parts of Africa, they have big, giant 200-pound leopards, 220-pound leopards maybe. But in Mozambique, where we were, it's rainforest type jungle right on the coast.
Okay.
And those leopards, they just don't get as big there like they do in Botswana or Zimbabwe or
gotcha.
somewhere like that. They're a little bit smaller cat, and but they're a prettier cat. in my opinion. And
what makes them prettier?
100. Their spots are just different.
Okay.
Those leopards kind of, you can tell the difference between a leopard and a jaguar by their spots.
Yeah.
And but a lot of those real big cats you see, they kind of have real small definitive spots. But it seems like those Mozambique cats have kind of bigger, prettier spots.
Okay.
And I'll tell you something else too. I mean, you mentioned the other day when we talked that you said, "Man, if I ever win the lottery, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go on a leopard hunt."
Yep.
And Gavin has a like a volunteer program that houndsmen can go, houndsmen from America, and you're basically just paying for your food and your room and board. And I don't remember how much it is. I think it's $4,000 or $5,000, something like that. And you get to go over there. I think it's for like 3 weeks, maybe 1 or 2 of his hunts, and help out.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's nice to have the trophy, but it's not like shooting the leopard in the tree takes the most skill in the world to get done.
Oh, no.
It's about getting them in the tree. And, I tell people all the time, I said, Gavin's, and really, truly, if, I kind of booked the first hunt, and I kind of got lucky in the last couple of years with some pretty big contracts for work that made me some extra money so that I could go up. I'd never be able to afford it. But, I kind of joke with Gavin. I said, hell, if you'd have told me that beforehand, I'd have just done that, because you get to go hunting and you get to handle the dogs and you get to trail the leopard and you get to tree the leopard and then you get to watch someone else shoot the leopard.
Yep.
And then you get to take all the pictures you want with it. And, for a lot of guys, $5,000 is something that is feasible.
Yeah. It's much more attainable than,
yeah,
20, 30, 40,000, depending on where you go and what you do.
Yeah. And I don't know, with Gavin, his price, I think, depends on where you go and stuff like that. But
kind of a rough ballpark that I've always heard, and also when I've looked at a few different places. We have a big, it's called the Great American Outdoor Show, right here, about an hour and a half from my house. Outfitters come from all over, and there's a few from Africa. About 30 grand is about normal, from what I understand.
Yeah, that's about right. I believe that's exactly what I paid Gavin for this hunt this year. But I couldn't complain very much because last year he kind of took me as a favor and bargain hunted in between hunts, and I didn't get a leopard, but we did tree one. I mean, that's all you could ask for. I mean, it's not, none of it's guaranteed. And the big expense is only if you kill a leopard, or half the expense is when you shoot it.
Mm-hmm.
You got to tag it and import fees and all of that stuff. But yeah, I think right about 30 grand is what I spent to go.
How long will it take you to get your cat?
A long time. Especially the way that, especially doing it the way we did it and where we did it, so my cat will sit skinned and salted at that camp until the end of December.
Okay.
And at the end of December, a company will come by and pick up all of their trophies from this year and then take them. And then from then, it'll probably take, close to a year to get my hide back to America.
Wow.
I'm going to have Ty Vick, who's a lion hunter from West Texas and the owner of Desert Taxidermy in Alpine, Texas. I'm going to have him mount that cat for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, it's going to take a while.
I figured there was going to be some time, but that's a little longer than I figured.
Yeah, but like I said, a lot of that. I mean, we were in the middle of nowhere, man. It it's a process,
Oh, I'm sure.
and the paperwork, and they can't just legally. They can't just throw that hide in the truck and start driving. You know, they have to get a paperwork on it, and then it has to be picked up by someone with paperwork on it, CITES tags. Being a leopard in Mozambique kind of complicates things.
Gotcha.
And but it is what it is.
Oh yeah.
Kind of deal, you
Yep.
know. And but maybe they'll open it up. If they'll ever open it back up in South Africa, that'll be the time to go.
Gotcha.
That'll be the time to go, because there's a bunch of big cats and there's lots of them, and it's been closed forever, and it'll probably be a lot cheaper.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't know much about hunting in Africa.
Yeah, it's complicated. Like you have South Africa, and it's mainly just game fences and game ranches, and I kind of refuse. I would never want to hunt there. That's going to piss a lot of people off at me, but and they're not all that way. But the majority of the places in South Africa are just game ranches, and
So it's like Texas.
have exactly. just like, and Texas has ruined hunting. And that's the exact same thing that's in South Africa. I mean, you're going to go there on a hunt on May 15th, and they know that you want to kill some kudus. So they're going to go down to the auction and buy a bunch of kudus and turn them loose the week before you get there, kind of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
And just not mine. But I will say this. That's the opinion that I had. So where I went with Gavin last year was the wilds of wild Africa. It would be the equivalent of public land hunting in Africa.
Okay.
And we drove around for 14 days and didn't see an animal. I mean, if it's not a privately owned game ranch in some form or fashion, it has been poached to extinction.
Yeah.
There were some leopards there, but I mean, so that kind of changed my perspective a little bit, But those guys, I mean, if there's no commercial hunting providing the income necessary to have an anti-poaching team, there's nothing. It's just gone to extinction. Logging on those public lands is illegal. And all day long, just logging trucks after logging trucks. Crazy. Illegally logging the land.
Mm-hmm.
Poaching is illegal. And every morning you would wake up, the poachers they burn the land so that they can see, really. And, where I went with Gavin last year, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of acres, and I would say that 80% of it had been burned by poachers.
Wow.
I mean, they just completely destroy everything.
That's crazy.
And they log all the... So you have to kind of give South African guys a little bit of leeway when it comes to that stuff, because if it wasn't for doing it that way, there would be nothing there to shoot.
Yeah.
So,
no, I've heard that before, because those animals have no value, or what value they have is more just the meat market, the bushmeat trade versus, actually, a client coming in, paying a bunch of money to shoot something, which then they get the meat anyway, and then also, that's what pays for. I think you said on Brett's there was like 20 guys.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Jobs for 20 people, plus they're getting the meat from it. So
yeah, no, and the meat was a big deal. you know, and one of the problems that I had over there was just hanging out with these guys all day and kind of becoming friendly with them and finding out that they make $3 a day.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of look over and just be like, man, I hope this guy don't know I paid $30,000 to shoot this leopard. You know,
Yeah.
I just this terrible feeling of,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what they would consider to be gross. You know,
Yep.
you know, just a grotesque display of overwealth, and I'm not even a wealthy man. You know, so
Yep.
but just imagine living there off the land and living with nothing your whole life and getting paid $3 a day, and then some arrogant American comes in and drops more money to shoot one animal than you make in a lifetime. I mean, it's a pretty rough feeling for me, you know, kind of, and I don't know why,
No, I
but
understand.
it was embarrassing for me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was like, man, I hope these guys don't know what this costs, you know, because I just felt, you know, I just felt bad.
Yeah. No,
I don't know how to explain it, but you know what I mean. I mean, I didn't do nothing wrong, but it was just, you know, being around those people and but that's life, you know. It is what it is.
But at the same point, you look at it, like you said, yeah, you spent a lot of money to go in there and hunt that leopard, but that's what pays for those 20 guys to have a job. That's what pays for.
That's exactly right. They're $90 a month for 20 of them, you know, and their housing and their meals, and and then at the same time, everything we shot. I mean, they took all the meat to the village, to town, to their families, and you know, and if the Americans weren't there doing that, or you know, it's not just Americans, but you know, the private land wouldn't be there, and it would all be poached out. I mean, it's good and bad, but it's you know, it's real easy to, you know, and that's the same time, like a poor person in America don't know what poor is. You know,
yeah.
And I'll tell you, that's one thing that really amazed me over there that I was not prepared for, and is all of the people in America that jump up and down screaming racism around every corner. Go to South Africa. That's not where we hunted, and the people that I was around were very friendly. But South Africa is a completely different story. You want to talk about racism, man? Let me tell you.
I've heard.
Them white people hate them black people, and them black people hate them white people.
Yeah.
I
know a couple years ago there was like a lot of murders on both sides, like basically a race war.
Yeah, all of them ranch owners in South Africa, man, they have radio systems set up in their homes, and they have like certain times where you check in with your neighbors and stuff.
Jeez.
I mean, they like you say, race wars and the black people coming and taking their land back and killing farmers and you know, and at the same time, I'm sure there's been decades of atrocities committed amongst them too, both ways. But I mean, that's racism, you know. And you know, I asked them guys about it, and they all kind of say the same thing. You know, the white man's grandpa sat him on his knee when he was a little kid and said, "Grandson, you need to hate them black people." And the black man sat his grandson down on his knee and said, "Grandson, you need to hate them white people." And it's embedded into their core, man.
Yeah.
They had big riots in town the day we were leaving last year. I mean, big chunks of the country shut down, and it can be pretty bad.
Stone Creek Hound Supply, a family-operated business, boasts over 50 years of involvement in hounds. For over 2 decades, they've been dedicated to supplying high-quality hound gear, Their reputation is founded on unparalleled quality and exceptional customer service. Crafted from U.S. source materials, Stone Creek clothing is meticulously manufactured right here in Pennsylvania. Through their commitment to excellence, many of their customers have become lifelong friends. Use the code TreeTalkingTime15 to save on all your purchases. So did you feel more unsafe out there with
in South Africa?
I was going to say out there in the wilds with the Jaguars and the Cape Buffaloes charging you, or in town?
Yeah, no, in town for sure.
Yeah.
And the black people that lived in the communities where we were hunting, they were very nice. I never felt any animosity talking to them or anything like that. But in South Africa, I mean, they look at you when you're driving down the street. It's a different world.
Yeah,
it's a different world
for sure.
But no, you need to get over there one day, and I'd recommend everybody to while you still can. Anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's the goal someday.
Yeah, there's Gavin does it. I'm sure there's a lot of places you can hunt leopards. Once you start saying I want to hunt them with hounds, your choices are starting to shrink a little bit. And but there's other guys besides Gavin. I don't know them, but Gavin and the houndsman community and doing the podcast on XP and stuff, that's what kind of made me decide to go with him. There was a little bit of trust factor there, you know.
I know Heath Hyatt just had somebody on that runs leopards with hounds.
Really?
Yeah, somebody else.
Yeah, there's a handful of them. I think they're kind of, each of them's regional and handles different areas.
Yeah.
And, but no, it was pretty neat. I joke with Gavin when I got over there, from the time that I had booked my leopard hunt in Africa for the second hunt, and the time that I went down and collared those jaguars in Mexico.
Okay.
And so I kind of joked with Gavin, and I said, man, I've always wanted to catch jaguars, and I have. I've run down there quite a few different times to try, and I've never had any luck.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of joke with Gavin. I said, man, if I never thought I'd actually catch one, or else I wouldn't have come over here with you, and give him a little bit of hell. But
yep,
it was neat to do both in 1 year and kind of get to see the comparison.
So,
and have you ever talked to Warner Glenn, the guy that caught the jaguars in the States?
I've never talked to him.
No.
I've listened to every podcast that Clay Newcomb did with him, and I've listened to the ones that the ones that Brett released that the other guy did.
Oh yeah.
The old ones.
Yeah.
I can't remember what they're called.
I've never listened to him. I wonder if he knew that he was on a jaguar when he caught it. Did he say?
Now that you ask me that, I don't remember.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you. You've hunted. Right. You've put up 7 different species of cat, right?
Yeah. If you count Africa.
Yeah. If you could pick one, and that's all you're ever going to hunt ever again, like doesn't matter where it is, the real logistics of it. Like if tomorrow you are going to be you're going to hunt that species of cat and only that species of cat for the rest of your life, what are you picking?
Bobcat.
Okay.
Yeah, which is what I catch the most of now. I catch right at about an average of 100 cats a year, 100 bobcats a year. And, but yeah, I would pick bobcats.
Okay.
Mountain lions are cool. They're a novelty to me. It's a different, I was kind of taught different. So Reuben Lossman, who, taught me how to run hounds and how to hunt bobcats with hounds. He was different than most hunters. And, a lot of hunters have a whole lot of 45-minute races and an hour races. And, Reuben liked a different kind of dog. And Reuben kind of strived for perfection. I mean, he liked the properness of it. And he wanted a dog that never barked out of place. And he wanted a dog that ran very proper. And to him, it was about how fast can I catch those bobcats after I jump them.
Okay.
So he had more of a jump style dog. They didn't bark as much. They didn't trail as much. Reuben was pretty impatient. I mean, if you started a cold bobcat, if you didn't have him jump in 5 minutes, Reuben was honking them. Let's go find another. Let's go find one we can run. That's what he'd say.
Yeah.
And he was lucky enough to live in a place where you could, And so that's what I was taught. And so that's the kind of dogs that I had forever. And then I wanted to start catching lions. And I went lion hunting and lion hunting and lion hunting, and I never caught nothing. And finally, one day I was driving down the road, and my dogs all bucked up and come running back to the truck. And I told the guy with me, I said, man, there's a rattlesnake in the road. The dogs acted just like they had just encountered a rattlesnake.
Yeah.
And I got out and shined the light over there. It wasn't a rattlesnake. It was a damn lion standing there looking at me. And those dogs, my dogs were so broke on bobcats that they wouldn't run it. And I sat there for 20 minutes, man, clapping and yipping and hollering and begging and praying. And the landowner was with me, and I spent the last 3 hours talking like I was the baddest mountain lion hunter in the world, when in reality, I ain't never even seen one before. And I had an old dog named Tiny that was bottle fed, and she was a big old pet. And I was kind of mad and frustrated, and she was just at my feet, and I was walking through there, and I kicked her by accident when I was walking. She didn't move out of the way. She kind of looked at me with some sad eyes. I reached down and petted her, and I said, I'm sorry, Tiny, I'm sorry. And when I did, she jumped up and put her paws on my chest, and I was petting her head. And I said, I'm sorry, Tiny, I'm sorry, Tiny. And when I did that, after about 10 seconds, as I was petting her, she barked once, just playing with me.
Yeah.
And when she did, every other dog ran straight to where I was standing and trailed that line up, caught it.
All it took was one bark.
Just somebody had to bark. Nobody wanted to be first.
That's funny.
It was pretty cool. And I'll tell you something else that was pretty cool. I would cat hunt a lot in some semi-urban areas. And a lot of times, if the bobcats weren't moving, the dogs get bored. And I would see wild house cats on these drain ditches and stuff. And my dogs never would tree them. They never would mess with them at all. And I caught that lion, and then I went hunting. Then I realized, I was like, oh man, my dogs won't run a lion. That's why I haven't been catching no lion. And so I went with a lion hunter a few times, and we caught a couple lions, and then I caught another lion. And so they kind of got into it, and they started catching lions. And once they started running lions, they would tree them house cats on them drain ditches.
Yep.
And when they were just bobcat dogs, they wouldn't do that. And even like the ocelots and stuff that I've treed, it was very evident listening to them that something was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like young dogs are doing way too much, and the old dogs are kind of not barking, but they're there. And so they but as time went on, a cat became a cat, and now they'll run anything. It's hard.
Now, when did you make that shift between bobcat and just cat dogs?
So I started hunting 20 years ago, and then I think it was in 2013. I was hunting down the river one night in Texas, but on the river, and I had the worst luck you could ever imagine. But long story short, a highline fell on my truck and electrocuted all my dogs, killed them all. And I quit hunting for a couple years. And so 13, 14, 15. So then I started back in 2016, 17. So that was probably late 2017, early 2018.
Okay.
And, in this 20%, in the last 5 years, I've probably caught 30 lions.
Nice.
Right around there somewhere. I mean, I'm not a lion hunter, but I do catch a few lions.
Yeah.
But it's an effort for me. So there's no lions where I live.
Okay.
But I can drive 3 hours west, and I can, if you told me, Cody, you have to catch a mountain lion, I would probably have to go hunting. I would say on average, probably go hunting for 3 days at a time. It'd probably take me 5 or 6 times on average to catch a lion.
So it's not something that you can just go. You can't just go out and tree a lion.
Correct. No. I mean, when most of the time I catch a lion, I've been out there trailing on him 3 or 4 different times and finding his tracks and kind of narrowing down where he goes. It's usually a several month long process.
Yeah.
To get him. And a couple months ago, I treed a bobcat and walk into the tree. It ended up being a lion instead of a bobcat. It was just pure accident.
Yeah.
So you never know, but yeah, so many people message me on Facebook and reach out to me on Facebook. They see my lion pictures and stuff. There's a lot more people want to go lion hunting than they do bobcat hunting.
Oh, yeah.
I have a lot of people reach out to me. Oh, I'll pay you. I want to go lion hunting. I want to go with you, catch a South Texas dry ground lion. That's so cool. And in Texas, there's no regulations. I could sell hunts tomorrow, but I can't produce the lions to do that. That's what people don't understand. But bobcats, I can, and that's why I say I would choose bobcats out of all of them.
I understand.
And bobcats, you have to trail them, and you have to jump them, but then you have to run them. And for the most part, you don't have to run lions that hard. The ocelots, they stink. They're easy. I mean, you and me can smell an ocelot.
Really?
They're nasty. The jaguarundis, they're running fools. I mean, they run and run and run and run and run and then tree. And then after they've been treed for about 4 or 5 minutes, they jump out again and run and run and run and run and run and just do that over and over and over again. And they're pretty hard to catch. You gotta, if you're catching, I don't know where in the world would have jaguarundis enough that you could hunt them. But if you were catching jaguarundis consistently, you'd have some good dogs. I can tell you that right now.
Yep.
And them Jaguars, they're too much. I wouldn't want to do that every day.
Gotcha.
That's they're a handful, killing dogs, and I never had them. I mean, I've had them tear my dogs up, but I've never had them kill one. But I haven't messed with them much. But I could see if if you're going to mess with Jaguars much, they're gonna kill dogs.
Oh, I'm sure.
I wouldn't want to put up with that on a consistent basis.
Yeah.
So I'd stick to running my bobcats.
There you go. Well, it's a good thing that's what you run then.
Yeah. No, I live in the right place for it. Have you ever hunted a bobcat with dogs?
I went out one time with a friend of mine. We went and tried to run some in the snow up here in Pennsylvania, and we took, he's got a pack of bear dogs, and I took a coon dog. We're trying to put them on cats, and we didn't have any luck. We found some nice, fairly decent cat tracks, but dogs acted like they didn't know what was going on. But like I said, we didn't take any cat dogs by any means.
My dogs probably wouldn't even get out of the truck. It's so cold. All that snow on the ground. They probably.
Well, you better get them used to that if you're going to take them to Canada to run some race.
I know. That's what I've been. And then I'm back to worrying. Like, man, I don't know if my dogs would locate them in those big trees.
You need a tree dog in there.
Yeah, and I've got what I consider to be pretty good tree dogs. Two of them in specific,
mm-hmm.
And so they might, but I doubt it. So like where I hunt bobcats at mainly, I mean, a lot of the country that I'm hunting in, there is no plant or tree taller than 15, 18 foot tall, and I catch all my bobcats in that. But then I get down on the creek bottoms and river bottoms, and there's some big oak trees or hackberry trees or something. But if I'm hunting in the short brush and I tree a bobcat, there's 12 dogs on the ground all looking at him, barking, screaming, trying to climb up there and get him. If I tree him in a big tree, I'll have 2 or 3 dogs barking.
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious when you listen to it. You're like, oh man, they must be in a tall tree because Dolly and Chamoy are the only 2 barking.
Yep.
And even those trees aren't that big, so I probably have to get somebody to go with me that has just one locating dog to kind of throw in the pack. But then that's kind of cheating, So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But
I gotta find to mix one in with your pack now. That way, when you go, it doesn't need to contribute much other than locating and treeing. So
yeah, all it's got to do is just locate. You locate coons in pretty big trees?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Like there's like the dogs never. It's not they never see anything till it hits the ground. If it does.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. I've got a gyp named Dolly that she can, she don't have to be able to see it. I mean, she trees by smell,
mm-hmm.
And so she might do it, but she's not full blooded running walker either. She's part pot liquor.
That's why.
Yeah, exactly. And even, the South Texas running walkers, as I call them, if you were to run a DNA test on them, they're mostly running walkers.
Yeah.
I would bet they're a 32nd or a 64th or a 128th got some kind of tree dog mixed in with them. And I just say that because they trail so much better than the registered running walkers that I've encountered in my life.
Okay.
So,
well, you figure that, you're talking about tree dog crossed in there. That's why a lot of those guys in the Pacific Northwest run some sort of running walk or, tree dog cross.
Yeah. But well, 10-4, man. Well, I appreciate you calling. I hope everybody had their fill of listening to me blow smoke for a little while.
No, I really appreciate you coming on. So.
Yeah, you bet, man. Anytime.
You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Tree Talking Media. And until next time, keep 'em talking in the timber.